Clan Lasombra, a clan that has it all. Dark magic, spooky vibe, evil intentions, boats, what's not to love? And finally, if you've watched a bunch of my clan videos, this is the last clan that I will start by saying it is one of my favorites. Something I say often, but it's because most of my videos are on the things I really love and enjoy. My favorite clans being Malkavian, Lasombra, Banu Hakim, Ravnos, and Tremere in that order. Granted, the difference between a lot of them is very slim. It's just what flavor of S tier do I enjoy. Lasombra is just genuinely cool for two main reasons. They are very spooky and have some very dark, interesting powers, and they're delightfully evil bastards. Like, oh my god, a lot of them, ridiculous. So they're going to be fun to talk about. A special thank you to all my channel members who made all these videos possible, and a huge shout out to Robbie Beckmeyer for supporting at the highest level. This increased level of support is greatly appreciated. Clan Lasombra is a very secretive clan, and there's not a major amount of details on their history, other than the fact that right now Lasombra is known as a Sabbat-aligned vampire clan. Mainly, the best way to view this is Lasombra is basically the Ventrue of the Sabbat. Their main vibe is very dark, evil things, and also being assholes. They are incredibly arrogant assholes and believe that they should be on top of anything. They're very dominant in all things they do. But the part that I find really, really funny is how really simple and kind of shrouded their history is, because they were there in Enoch way back in the day, but they don't really get a lot of headlights. It's fitting. It's very fitting that that is the method, largely because their antediluvian is just so simple. He's just so easy to talk about, unlike, Set, Ravnos, every other antediluvian, to be honest, because he only has one origin story. His name is also a pretty major thing, because Lasombra may or may not be his real name, mainly because this is a Roman name they gave him way later, just anglicizing his actual name. The other names that we have is Lasombra, Proto-Indo-European name meaning profiting from knowledge. He's also known to other people as Laza Amri Baras, meaning god of the river of darkness. Or sometimes he's known as Lucian, which that one is very, very spotty. It's referring to him, but that's definitely not his name, or it's referring to a completely different guy. It is important to say, a lot of this isn't addition change fuckery, which is the source of many, many things in this game. This is actually intentional from what it seems. The point is that we're not really meant to care where he comes from, which the best way to touch on that is literally just his origin and how he got turned into a vampire. Sit down and settle in for my very expansive, long-winded tale. One day, a cringe loser got turned into a vampire. That's literally it. I'm not kidding, by the way. That is literally how it's referred to in Lasombra text. If I'm going to directly quote a Clan Lasombra historian, it is, perhaps he was a man of power. I suspect, rather, he was a pathetic failure embraced for a trivial reason. That's how they view him, which I don't disbelieve this. This is a very simple tale, and something I imagine that probably happened often, except Lasombra was one of the few that actually raised himself into power and some sort of prominence. I don't imagine a lot of the vampires that were way back in the day were exercising much constraint. They didn't have a reason to, just thought it'd be funny if they embraced him. We actually don't even know who embraced him. A lot of it's just mysterious. All we really know is that he was there in Enoch. He took part in that revolution that killed all the second generation vampires. It's assumed, as Clan Ventrue kind of says, their main rivals in this world, they say that it's because a Ventrue was on top of the pecking order, therefore Lasombra took part in killing all the other second generation kindred, because they were really upset at there being a Ventrue in charge. What is Clan Lasombra's response? Leaving them on red. They don't care. As well, the only other thing about Lasombra that's known at this period is that he was really, really into the underworld and the powers one can attain by using it. That fascination would have some lasting ramifications for his clan. We also know that Lasombra didn't sire many childer. Mainly, he was really, really focused on the idea that if he was going to turn somebody, they have to be worthy, and they have to kind of want it. The actual main expansion of his clan was right after Cain kicked everyone out of the second city when he enacted his revenge for all their killing. He went over to the Maasai people, which is a real ethnic group that's out over in Kenya and Tanzania. he went to this tribe and he wanted to come up with a method of making a very, very cool and worthy child. So he told the Maasai tribe to bring him a child. And the stories that the Maasai tribe tells, the one that we actually pull a lot of this from, is that they say a pale spirit came one day. I imagine Lasombra wearing a bedsheet, poking 2 holes in for the eyes. That's probably what he did. And he took one of the children that was offered to him, and he used this child to try to raise a perfect leader for the clan. This was legitimately an experiment that failed. For some reason, this kid did not properly do what he wanted. He was not a good leader, so he decided to kill half of the Maasai clan, just I guess as punishment. But after he did this, another person came, the friend of this original kid named Antai. He came over and completely pledged his loyalty, right away. He wanted to serve Lasombra and he wanted to become a vampire. Lasombra reacted to this by being really creeped out. Because the thing about this kid is that he was intense and way too loyal for no reason. So Lasombra tried to get him out of this. He said, "All right, kid, I'll turn you to a vampire. However, you must kill the other half of your tribe," killing all of them. Antai immediately turned around and was going to go do it. No hesitation. Lasombra, again, creeped out by this. He's like, no, stop. You can become a vampire. And he turned him. Antai, being a still existing character in Vampire the Masqurade, now under a different name, he's essentially the most loyal member of the clan to Lasombra. And Lasombra spent this time thinking, man, I might have messed this up. I don't really like how into me he is. But they eventually would go to the Mediterranean Sea and took over a pirate group. This is where I mentioned that Lasombra was kind of really into boats. He was also into water and boats, and he just really liked that. So they took up a sailing life. And this pirate group basically made the Mediterranean completely their territory. They would go around, demand tribute, and raid people. For those of you who have studied history, you might have heard of the Sea Peoples, something that was pretty integral in the Bronze Age, and the Bronze Age collapse, and making a pretty empty spot in history. It's very interesting, actually, by looking into it. Clan Lasombra was the Sea People. That was his doing, so a fun little fact, I guess. But eventually they would settle down in Sicily and became super embroiled in the Catholic Church. Just right nestled in there, because that was a pretty good place of power. And if you want influence, that's a place to go. Clan Lasombra, the way they like to operate is from the shadows as a puppet master. There's a lot more power you get as the secret beneficiary controlling everything secretly. But them being nestled in Italy means they cross the paths of one particular man, Gratiano de Veronese. Now, this guy is an absolute bastard. He sucks ass. He's done a lot of horrible things. Just a little preview. Gratiano is essentially the reason the Anarchs and the Sabbat exist. Something he's kind of proud of. But originally, Gratiano was just a very prominent nobleman of a family. He was very cunning, very ruthless, and just would do anything for more power. He did a lot of schemes that fucked over people, but got him right on top. He was proud of this. But one day, one of his schemes kinda bit him in the ass. Some power move he tried to play with Germany and the Roman Empire. Did not work. He was immediately put in prison and was going to await execution. However, Lasombra had been watching him this whole time. In fact, Lasombra himself actually orchestrated the arrest by the Holy Roman Empire. And so, when Gratiano was sitting in his cell, one day a shadowy man appeared and literally walked through the wall like a ghost. And he gave him an offer. You can either rot here in this cell and then probably die, or I can turn you into something more powerful. I can turn you into a vampire. Because like I said, Lasombra liked to put all the cards on the table. He did not like the idea of turning somebody against their will. He found that disgraceful. Gratiano right away was not into this. He was not into this random powerful stranger who appeared in his cell, and also was still thinking nah, I can talk my way out of this. I can get out of this execution. However, the part that appealed to him was the idea of gaining power in such a simple way. He could just be turned into a vampire. That sounded pretty cool. So that he accepted. And he became essentially the right-hand man of Lasombra, because he immediately came up with a scheme to kill Lasombra and take over. That's the kind of guy he is. However, he realized that he should try to play that humble servant, someone who's super, super loyal. And eventually, to cut a very long story short, because I could make an entire video covering this story of the Anarch revolts in 1413. That was him. He led that charge. So in actually 1413, he led an assault with the Banu Hakim, the Assamites at the time. He led an assault on Lasombra's like main lair, who Lasombra was in Torpor. He went over and killed him. Now, it is also unclear if Gratiano committed diablerie on Lasombra. We don't know. There's no eyewitnesses to affirm this. But right when he did that, he immediately denied taking like the mantle of the clan. He didn't want to lead it. He just kicked out all of the loyalist members and made them the current antitribu. And he then let all the Lasombra that were still around him to make their own decision on what they want to do with their life. Very anarch of him. And in modern nights, like I mentioned, Clan Lasombra is very tied in with the Sabbat, being like the key leader figures of the Sabbat. And a lot like I mentioned, they like to lead everything from the shadows, they are puppet masters, they're very charismatic people. Mainly because this lays into like their compulsion, they just have to be dominant in any situation. That idea of like being a puppet master is honestly because it prevents people from sitting above them in any way. The idea that a Clan Lasombra member would be ordered around is crazy. As well, they are awful people, usually. They're usually pretty awful. Obviously, this is a tabletop role-playing game. You can make a Lasombra any way you want. They're part of the Sabbat, mainly, and, you know, that's a vampire supremacist cult. They like to really hold themselves in high regard over people, especially ghouls. They don't treat humans very well. Even more, the actual like concept of ruthlessness that they have also extends to the clan members, because this is a clan that kind of embraces the idea of diablerie, not as like a compulsion to commit it like the Banu Hakim, but instead the idea that if you fight another clan member and then kill them, you know, you should diablerize them. That's just gaining more power. And they don't commit this as a crime because to Lasombra, if you got diablerized, you deserved it. That just implies that they wasted their time embracing you in the first place. You were clearly weak. Which, I guess speaking of, the last thing I really need to cover is their actual Bane, compulsion, and disciplines, which leads into something bigger. The thing I've left out for many of you who know Clan Lasombra. For their actual Bane and compulsion, I already talked about their compulsion. It's the idea of ruthlessness. Whenever their beast is triggered, they just need to be powerful. They need to be dominant. Their Bane, however, is the idea of distorted image. Essentially, it is really, really hard to capture and reflect the image of a Lasombra kindred. This is because part of their being is actually currently in the underworld, like in the abyss. I will get into this a little later, but this is very important. Because of this, they don't appear right in reflections. They don't appear right in pictures and video. This actually used to be just the classic vampire Bane of like, you don't have a reflection anymore. But right now it is very, very distorted. I actually really enjoy how it was taken in V5. So like, say for example, you are breaking into a base of some kind. They have CCTV. The Lasombra like is all staticky and weird in like artifacting. It just doesn't pick up. This is an issue though, because you have to really be careful when you're around things like this, because that is a possible masquerade breach. Then for their disciplines, they have dominate to mentally control people, potence to make yourself stronger, physically, in all regards of that. And then their unique one, which depends on the edition. It used to be Attenubration. In V5, it is Oblivion. Change I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of that. Attenubration is basically the power to control shadows. It is shadow and darkness magic. Some of the abilities you get are very, very cool. It's very like shadow tendrily and like warping darkness. It's very, very sick. I love this power so much. And like I said, this is because part of their being is in the abyss. The abyss is the area of the underworld God made to hold all the demons. Part of them is just in there, and because of that, their soul is just not complete in the reality of the physical world. The reason for this is not super stated from what I was seeing, so it's my belief that it's because Lasombra was really into this dark evil magic, and because he was super into this, it went down the descendants of his bloodline. It's actually noted that practicing this like discipline in shadow magic is something that will directly damn you further in the eyes of God. Kindred are already not looked great upon by God, so this is like a step down from that. And, you know, in V5, it's Oblivion, because they like to do a streamlining of the disciplines, which gets rid of their unique aspect. Oblivion is just stuff sourced from the underworld, and this is like basically Wraithy Oblivion. that is something they're very tied to. One of the issues I personally have is the fact that now they share a discipline with Hakata, a bunch of necromancers. And because of that, Oblivion has like two main things that it's doing. On one hand, you have actual necromancy, raising and controlling spirits, or like destroying corpses. And on the other hand, you have all like the shadow magic that you can get. Now, I think V5 all around is fine. It is a smaller scale game that you can play, and I actually think like the core rules of Vampire 5th edition are a bit better than a lot of the older editions. I'm a big fan of their humanity and hunger track. I'm actually just prefer a lot of its core systems. I think it's much better designed. In that aspect, they did very well. But the problem that constantly fails is the idea that everything needs to be streamlined character-wise, so your actual character is a little harder to make interesting, unique to your party, especially if people are like sharing disciplines, because all the unique ones are gone, and it's annoying. And so the idea that a Lasombra would like be practicing necromancy is a little dumb, in that they can easily access it. And the other way goes for Hakata, who can now pick up like shadow tendril shit. I see little discourse around with my videos about like V5, V20. This is like the one big benefit you'd get from V20. A lot of the disciplines I think are done like better. Granted, V20 is a bit unbalanced and it gets a little overpowered. But yeah, that's Clan Lasombra. They're super fun, super cool, and I'm really, really into them. I think there's just a lot of cool character stuff you can make. I've made a couple, both in a game I was trying to run, and there's like an alternate character that I would have played was gonna immediately be a Lasombra. I like them so much. But yeah, that's it. That's the video. I will make vampire stuff eventually. It's been a bit. So like, subscribe, do that stuff, and see ya.